Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, and Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Navneet Singh, and with me is Saira Mujtaba, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin lauds India's growth story, calls its citizens talented and driven, endorses evacuations from occupied Kherson. India reiterates its support for denuclearization towards peace and security in the Korean Peninsula. Pravasi Bharatiya Divas to be held from 8th to 10th January next year at Indore, Madhya Pradesh. Ministry of Tourism to participate in World Travel Market being held in London. In boxing, Indian pugilist Meenakshi and Preeti storm into semi-finals of Asian Elite Boxing Championship in Amman, Jordan on Saturday. And in cricket, England becomes second team to qualify for semi-finals of T20 World Cup after New Zealand. Australia knocked out of the tournament. Russian President Vladimir Putin lauded India's growth story by calling its citizens talented and driven, who will help the country achieve outstanding results in terms of its development. Putin was addressing a meeting on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of the Russian Historical Society on National Unity Day yesterday. The Russian president's comments came ahead of External Affairs Minister's two-day visit to Moscow beginning on Monday. On the 27th of October, Mr. Putin praised Prime Minister Modi's independent foreign policies. Mr. Modi is able to pursue an independent foreign policy in the interest of his country and his people without any attempts to stop him, said President Putin at a plenary session of Valdai International Discussion Club. The Russian president added that his country had special ties with India that were built on the foundation of really close allied relations for decades. He pointed out that Russia never had any outstanding issues with India and that both countries always supported each other. In September, President Putin and Prime Minister Modi met on the sidelines of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where the latter urged the Russian president to end the war in Ukraine. Mr. Modi had said that today's era was not of war, adding Putin should return to the path of dialogue. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that civilians in Ukraine's Kherson region should be evacuated from the conflict zone. This is Russian President's first acknowledgement of a deteriorating situation in the region. Russian officials in Kherson region, one of 4 Ukrainian provinces that President Putin declared part of Russia at a Kremlin ceremony in September, have pleaded for civilians to leave the region's west, where Ukrainian forces have retaken ground in recent weeks. On Thursday, Kherson's Russian-appointed Deputy Governor Kirill Stremosov issued several video appeals for civilians to leave part of the province on the west bank of the Dnipro River. Kherson region is seen as strategically crucial, controlling both overland access and much of the water supply to Crimea, which Russia annexed in 2014.
A fire in a bar in the Russian city of Kostroma has killed at least 15 people. Authorities have said that it might have begun when a drunk customer at the nightclub fired a flare gun on the dance floor, reported Russian media. The fire reportedly spread when parts of the lighting rig on the ceiling ignited, quickly filling the room with smoke. It took several hours for it to be extinguished. A suspect said to be a local resident has been arrested. It took emergency workers several hours to put out the fire, which began at around 2 a.m. local time in Kostroma, 300 kilometers northeast of Moscow. The exact number of people inside the club at the time is not known, but 250 people were able to be evacuated. According to BBC Russian, the company which manages the club is owned by a local politician. In 2009, 159 people had died in a nightclub in the Russian city of Perm. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on coal mine auction, assuring energy security and Atmanirbharta in the energy sector. In conversation are Anil Razdan, former Energy Secretary, Ministry of Power, and Arjun J. Chaudhary, AIR correspondent.
Anilji, for the benefit of our listeners, do tell us the importance of this sixth round of the coal mine auction.
It is a very important step in the right direction. For some decades, we had unfortunately become captives to our own ideology that everything should be in the public sector and only if at all it is allotted, it should be for very captive use. It had a certain background because coal mining had become a very dangerous operation in India and a lot of lives were being lost. And so it was imperative at that stage that the government should get into safer mining, things like that. And it is an important mineral. A lot of employment is affected and the labor should not be exploited. So to that extent, Coal India did a fantastic job and it kind of consolidated the operations. And there was Lignite Corporation also, which was handling the so-called brown coal in the south and some in western India. But there are limitations as the coal which is used largely for electricity generation in the country, the demand flared up. So we had to increase our production, increase availability. Power generation also, which was earlier largely in the public sector, also started moving to the private sector. So we had to create steps to ensure that coal is easily available. You don't have to import those quantities. It is more efficiently mined. It is available across the country because after all, coal mining is a commercial business. It's a very specialized activity. And if the public and private sector can both join in this critical activity, which is absolutely critical again to power generation in the country, which about 60 to 70% is still dependent on coal, though we want to gradually move towards renewables, but renewables from equipment manufactured within our country so that we create employment within the country and we don't create employments for outside countries. So this process, we must understand, will take a little time. Government is trying its best now to ensure that local employment is increased, local incentives are given, but coal will continue to play a major role at least for the next decade or two, I feel, in this country because we are largely dependent on thermal power supply. Thermal power supply can come from coal or gas. Gas is largely imported now. More than 50% is imported. So we have to ensure that we are able to maximize coal generation, mine coal by the most efficient methodology, and also dress it, so to say, clean it if possible, that is washed coal, and then send it across so that we are not sending ash across the country. We would like that coal handling operations, coal mining operations, as efficient as possible. In our race to move towards meeting our demand for coal, we had mostly gone for open cast mining. A lot of coal is lying underground at deeper depths. Now, to mine this coal, you will have to employ more expensive techniques. Though environmentally it could be more benign, but it will come at a cost. And we have to be prepared to pay that cost. To think that coal prices are going to continue to come down, that may not be the case if we are going in for underground mining, even if we improve efficiency in our operations. And I think some operations have been modernized and they should continue to be modernized. So this step which the government has taken to involve in a very transparent manner the private sector on new mines if possible, and also those which people are not able to work properly, they are offering to somebody else. If somebody else can do a good job of it, as it happens in the oil exploration also. So it is a step absolutely in the right direction. We are no longer prisoners of our ideology. We're trying to do things as transparently as possible. And if there are more players in the field producing it, then the prices will also tend to be a little competitive and monopolies will not be there, hopefully, in such a large measure as there was the case.
You mentioned about the clean coal technology. Do tell us about the coal gasification process and how the production-linked incentive scheme is going to be launched by the government to ensure coal gasification and get the most thermal units by burning coal in an efficient manner.
Coal gasification point is that we are basically looking at, when we're talking of gasification of coal, we're looking at, number one, more efficient combustion of coal. Secondly, you see, we are looking at if we can produce the right gases out of it so that coal is not only for combusting as such. It can produce other gases which are useful, which can be utilized in the industry, not only as heat but as chemical processes. And in due course of time, we are able to produce some chemicals out of it, which are more commercially attractive than merely combusting coal. Because while today we are largely dependent in our electricity generation on thermal coal, but as we move towards more renewables, that is solar, wind, or some maybe tidal power, some other forms of power, renewable power which will come into being, we should find appropriate uses for our coal, for which we have large deposits. But this coal, as I mentioned earlier, this coal which is lying underground at deeper depths will come out at a higher price. Now, if this coal is to be commercialized, put to its right commercial use, we have to get into production of useful gases, production of useful chemicals out of it, so that those commodities which we may be importing at the moment, or which we will in our industrial in the times to come, we are able to get those commodities and get a better value for our coal. And I only hope that these companies which will gradually have to go into underground mining, because the coal may be available at much lower depths than you can with access through open cast mining, we would be able to get the right price for it and make the operations economical. Because if we go for this underground mining or for deep mining, the costs that are involved there may not be remunerative for merely burning that coal for production of electricity. Or in some cases, say as coking, though we don't have much coking coal at the moment, we are importing most of it. So we've got to diversify coal use. If we have to diversify coal use, we've got to involve a lot of private players so that we bring competition, not only the public sector, and we're able to value addition industries in the times to come.
Well, that was very informative, Mr. Razdan. Thank you, sir.
India on Friday reiterated its support for denuclearization towards peace and security in the Korean Peninsula. Addressing the UN Security Council, India's permanent representative to UN, Ruchira Kamboj, said that India also reiterates the continued support for denuclearization towards peace and security in the Korean Peninsula in our collective interest. She said India will continue to support dialogue and diplomacy as the means to resolve issues in the Korean Peninsula. The Indian envoy at the UN also took a dig at Pakistan's nuclear proliferation record, calling it a matter of concern, and reiterated the importance of addressing the proliferation of nuclear and missile technologies related to DPRK in the region. The group of 7 G7 countries have called for an extension of the UN-brokered grain deal after a 2-day meeting in the western German town of Münster. In a joint statement, G7 foreign ministers said that they strongly support the United Nations Secretary General's call for the extension of the Black Grain Initiative, which has reduced global food prices. They also urged Russia to heed the Secretary General's call. On Wednesday, Russia resumed its participation in the Black Sea grain deal after securing guarantees from Ukraine on the non-use of the humanitarian corridor and ports designated for the export of agricultural products for military operations. The UN-brokered Black Sea Grain Initiative was signed during a ceremony in Istanbul in July. Under the deal, ships transporting grain from 3 Ukrainian ports travel along an agreed corridor to markets worldwide.
The United States has announced that it will fund the refurbishment of T-72 tanks and Hawk surface-to-air missiles as part of a roughly $400 million security assistance package for Ukraine. Air defense and armor capabilities are both high on the list of assistance desired by Ukraine. However, the T-72s fall short of the most modern tanks such as German Leopards or US Abrams. Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh told journalists that the tanks are coming from the Czech Republic defense industry and the United States is paying for 45 of those to be refurbished. In South Korea, a defense ministry official in Seoul has said that a US B-1B strategic bomber will participate in the ongoing joint air drills on Saturday, the last day of the exercise dubbed as Vigilant Storm. This show of force follows after a blitz of missile launches by North Korea. The United States and South Korea have warned that the series of launches could culminate in a nuclear test by North Korea and extended their largest ever Air Force drills to Saturday in response. Earlier, the exercises were originally scheduled from Monday to Friday this week. Pyongyang has ramped up its missile launches in protest over the US-South Korea air drills. Such exercises have long infuriated North Korea, which sees them as rehearsals for an invasion. Pyongyang had called Vigilant Storm an aggressive and provocative military drill targeting North Korea.
Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan has made his first public address today since he was shot during a protest march in the eastern city of Wazirabad. Sitting in a wheelchair at a hospital in Lahore, Mr. Khan said that he would not have survived the shooting if the two shooters he saw had synchronized their attack. Last month, Pakistan's Election Commission disqualified Mr. Khan from holding public office in a case described by the former star cricketer as politically motivated. Earlier, a day after an attempted assassination on Imran Khan, protesters took to the streets and held traffic hostage. Mr. Khan was shot on Thursday evening when his party's march reached Wazirabad's Allahwala Chowk. In the latest development, the Punjab police have confirmed that 7 people were injured and a person was killed during the firing incident. According to the police, the shooter has been arrested.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter @AIR News Alerts.
Guyana President Dr. Muhammad Irfan Ali will be the chief guest at the 17th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas Convention. Pravasi Bharatiya Divas is celebrated once in every 2 years to strengthen the engagement of the overseas Indian community with the Government of India and reconnect them with their roots. It will be held from the 8th to 10th January next year at Indore, Madhya Pradesh. In a statement, External Affairs Ministry said Zaneta Mascarenhas, the Member of Parliament of Australia, will be the guest of honour at the Youth Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, which will be held on the 8th January next year. During the convention, selected overseas Indians are also honoured with the prestigious Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Award to recognise their contributions to various fields both in India and abroad.
The Ministry of Tourism will participate in the World Travel Market WTM, which is being held in London from the 7th to the 9th of this month. It is one of the largest international travel exhibitions. The theme of this year's exhibition is "The Future of Travel Starts Now." With the reopening of the country to foreign tourists after a gap of almost 2 years, this year's participation of India is particularly significant. The Ministry of Tourism in a statement said, India is participating in the WTM 2022 to showcase itself as a preferred destination for tourism. A total of 16 stakeholders, including state governments, other central ministries, the Confederation of Indian Industry as the industry partner, tour operators and hoteliers are participating as co-exhibitors in the India Pavilion. The objective is to showcase the diverse tourism products and services, including medical value travel, luxury trains, and the gamut of tourism products to the international business community. The government is cognizant of the country's potential in the tourism industry and has taken several steps to make India a global tourism hub. The Ministry of Tourism is aiming to develop the tourism sector, especially in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic, to new heights and accelerate the transition to achieve sustainable development targets of 2030. Admiral R. Hari Kumar, Chief of the Naval Staff, CNS, is on an official visit to Japan from 5th of November to the 9th of November 2022. He will witness the International Fleet Review, or IFR, conducted by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, JMSDF, at Yokosuka on 6th of November to commemorate the 70th anniversary of its formation. During the visit as one of the observer navies in the Western Pacific Naval Symposium, the CNS will also attend the 18th WPNS on the 7th and 8th of November at Yokohama, being hosted by Japan as the current chair of WPNS. In addition to representing India and the Indian Navy during the IFR and WPNS, he will also be in attendance for the inauguration of the 2022 edition of Exercise Malabar, being held at Yokosuka with the participation of Australia, Japan and the US. Initiated in 1992, This year marks the 30th anniversary year of Exercise Malabar. Admiral R. Harikumar would also be interacting with his counterparts and other heads of delegations from close to 30 countries participating in the IFR, WPNS and Malabar.
A maritime partnership exercise involving Royal Australian Navy RAN ships HMAS Adelaide and HMAS Anzac and Indian Navy ships Jalashwa and Kavarati along with their embarked helicopters was held in the Bay of Bengal on 2nd and 3rd November. The exercises included tactical maneuvers, helicopter landings and amphibious operations, which signified the high degree of interoperability between IN and RAN. RAN ships HMAS Adelaide and HMAS Anzac visited Visakhapatnam from the 30th of October to the 1st of November. This was part of Australia's Indo-Pacific Endeavour 2022 IPE-22. The Australian Defence Forces were hosted by the Eastern Naval Command. Ships of the Indian Navy's Eastern Fleet as also personnel from the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force participated in various joint activities. The harbour phase included a wide range of professional interactions, including experience sharing, joint planning activities and friendly sports exchanges. The successful completion of the exercise has marked another milestone in the growing India-Australia military interactions. Liberation war fighters, constitutional experts and representatives of the minority groups have demanded that the government of Bangladesh should go back to the constitution of 1972, which did not specify any state religion. Speaking at a seminar organized by the Bangladesh Hindu, Bauddha, Christian Oikya Parishad at the National Press Club in Dhaka on Saturday, one of the people involved in the making of the 1972 constitution, former Minister Dr. Abu Sayyed, said that the 1971 Liberation War was fought to establish democracy against militarism and dictatorship without any place for religious identity. But Bangladesh's current constitution lost that feature as the military rulers changed it to suit their ideology. He pointed out that till Bangabandhu's time, all state functions started with the reading from the four scriptures. The killers of Bangabandhu added the invocation from the majority religion on top of the constitution, said Dr. Abu Sayyed. Former Vice-Chancellor of Dhaka University Professor AMS Arifin Siddiqui said that the 1972 constitution embodies the spirit and dreams of the Liberation War. Democracy, rule of law, equality and equality can't be established without bringing back this constitution to Bangladesh.
In Pakistan, 9 coaches of the Nankana Sahib bound special train carrying Sikh pilgrims to attend Guru Nanak's birth anniversary celebrations derailed in Punjab province today. No one was injured in the accident. Pakistan Railway spokesperson said the special train carrying Sikh pilgrims was on its way to Nankana Sahib from Karachi when 9 of its bogies derailed around 7:55 p.m. between Shorkot and Pir Mahal railway stations in the province. Guru Nanak's birth anniversary will be observed on the 8th of this month. The main event will be held at Gurudwara Janmasthan Nankana Sahib. In badminton, Kidambi Srikanth will play his semi-final match of the Halle Open at Saarbrücken in Germany today. He will be facing Anthony Sinisuka Ginting of Indonesia. World number 11, Srikanth defeated Indonesia's Jonathan Christie 21-13, 21-19 in the quarter-final yesterday. Women's doubles pair of Teresa Jory and Gayatri Gopichand will also be playing their semi-final match against Benyapa Aimsarth and Nutkarn Aimsarth of Thailand. They beat Chinese Taipei duo in the quarter-final yesterday.
In boxing, Indian pugilist Meenakshi and Preeti stormed into semi-finals of the Asian Elite Boxing Championship in Amman, Jordan today. Meenakshi defeated Philippines